I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Gatta. I'm an Upwork ambassador. I've been working independently myself for more than 7.5 years now. My background is in marketing and project management, and I genuinely love advocating for and working with independent talent on the Upwork marketplace. And for today's expert talk, I invited 3 professionals, each from a different part of the world, each working successfully through the Upwork marketplace. And today they'll be joining us to share their experience, talk about what they've learned along the way, and answer the questions that you have. And I really want to emphasize this point that, I have my own questions for them, which I'm going to ask, but this webinar really isn't about my questions, it's about yours. So I encourage you to ask anything that you want us to talk about so that we can really make this a practical discussion and focus on things that are going to be helpful and hopefully, leave you at the end of the webinar with ideas on how you can improve the way you work and how you can attract better clients, more clients, and how you can, earn better as a freelancer on the marketplace. So feel free to start typing your questions in the Q&A section as you have them, and I'll start taking them. Another reminder, thanks. Please don't put your questions in the chat because there's going to be a lot of messages there. We won't be able to track them. So any questions you want us to address, please ask them in the Q&A. All right, and let's start with the introductions. And I'm going to start with Ross Jenkins. Ross is the founder of Digital ME. He is Active Campaign certified consultant. He's ranked #1 on Upwork for his proficiency in digital marketing. Digital ME, I'm sorry, Ross, is that Digital ME or is it Digital Me?
Digital Me.
Digital Me, okay. Digital Me offers targeted digital solutions and is perfect for anyone who wants to increase leads, sales, and productivity through automation. Now, next we have with us Anouk Knuffmann, who is a digital marketing professional with 6 years of experience working as a freelancer. She was born in Hamburg, Germany, and moved to Cape Town, South Africa in 2014, and has just relocated to Lisbon, Portugal. In 2019, she co-founded a link building agency, currently consisting of a team of 15. Additionally, she has managed the marketing activities of a Fortune 100 company on Upwork. When she's not working, she's either doing yoga, catching up with friends, or spending time in nature. And finally, we have Felice Delgada, Felice, I think is pronounced correctly, who is a self-taught brand identity and product designer, working with clients worldwide to build brands and products that stick. And to now kind of give you all a chance to elaborate on this introduction and to talk a little bit about your experience. The first question is for everybody. And that question is, how did your freelancing journey begin and how has it evolved since? And I'll start with Ross.
Cool. So my freelancing journey began over 3 years ago. I was working 9 to 5 for multiple agencies for over 10 years. Generating a lot of money and realizing that I'm getting a very small amount of the money. I realized that I had way more potential and what I wanted to achieve, and I wanted to work with clients who really wanted to grow their company and knew what their goals were. So I joined Upwork when I was in Barcelona, and I spent 3 months applying for jobs and managed to land my first job and go from there, really.
Cool. All right. And next, Anouk.
So with me, it started 2016, but I was doing freelancing and working for a company simultaneously. The reason I started was when I was in Cape Town. I wanted to do something on the side just to bump up the salary a bit, and then that's how I kind of got to Upwork. And then I started working for a company remotely, which then also allowed me to continue doing the freelancing on the side. And then when I founded the agency, that's when I kind of started to be completely self-employed. Was there also how it changed, or that was the question, right?
Yep. All right. And Felice?
Yes. I don't want to make it too romantic, but I feel I've always freelanced my whole life. Like, I always worked on projects, even small ones for the local community. But for most of my life, freelancing has been the side hustle. I think I've been in a full-time job for well over 5 years, maybe 7 years. And one day I couldn't take another day at my job, and I decided to take the leap into full-time freelancing. I managed to make it work, but I wouldn't have called myself successful until one day I stumbled up on Upwork and I felt that there was an opportunity there. I gave it my all. In the end, it ended up working. Fast forward 2 years, I was a digital nomad, living the dream of traveling the world, which has always been a dream of mine. And till today, where I can call myself award-winning designer. It's embarrassing, I know, but
Not at all.
I feel it's still an achievement. So I'm pretty happy where I'm at now. So that's the story.
Cool. Yeah, that's one of the things I like about this group, that we were also able to get each and every one of you is from a different location, and I think that COVID has slowed travel for a lot of people, but it was really interesting in getting to know all three of you, that you still managed to travel Europe quite a bit in this time and stay safe. So that's also good. All right, and then tied to that first question, what are you specializing in now, and how's that different from what you were doing when you first started?
Sure.
And Ross can go first.
Cool. So I guess when you apply for a job, you apply for a job for, let's say, a digital marketing manager, and that job is really, really broad. It's managing multiple people, it's doing blog posts. The job title is huge, but when you apply for jobs on Upwork, it's specific, because the people are looking for a specific profession, i.e. email marketing or SEO or link building. So whereas now we specifically work on things that we're really good at, which is email marketing and setting up CRMs and ultimately setting up things that will generate profit. Whereas previously, when you work a 9 to 5, you work in a huge broad job that maybe some of the skills you weren't the best at.
And how do you pick those? Because it's very specific with emails and with CRM. Why this and not something else? Why did you kind of pick this specific niche in terms of, you figured this is the specific part of marketing that you want to focus on?
I always really loved about the data and how much money you can make in terms of how much money you can generate for a company. For instance, it's quite niche, but I mean, if someone had a list of 1 million contacts that were all past customers and they sent an email to them, because they've already got that relationship, we've built a relationship, there's a huge amount of money to be made. And I always found that exciting because you can watch the results come in live time, and I guess nerdy stuff.
Well, yeah, but as this kind of applies more generally, regardless whether you work in marketing or not, something that I think is, and the thinking that I've also applied, because similarly to Ross, for me, it's not been email, but I also work in marketing, and I've focused for a while on advertising for a very similar reason, that you can tie that data specifically to measure return on investment, and then it becomes much easier for you to increase your rates and based on your results. But some thinking that I think kind of applies to just anybody, regardless of what you're working, is always try to think about the value that you add to a client and how you can leverage your skill, whatever that is, to add the maximum amount of value. And that's how you can think about setting your specialty, right? So, and here I'll go to Anouk real quick for her to tell us how that also works for her, and then Felice as well.
Okay. So for me, when I started, I did actually focus more on translation, because that's what I was doing in the company that I was working for before. So I was working in the translations department, doing German English translations. And then that's kind of like how I started on Upwork. And then I did some copywriting jobs as well. And then when I moved to the digital marketing department at that other company, I did the same on Upwork. So I then kind of like added additional services to my Upwork profile. And that's how I got the different type of jobs. And that's also how I slipped into off-page SEO and link building in a way. And now I focus mainly on the link building part, also mainly on not necessarily English speaking, but majority German, French, and Spanish, simply because I've realized that it's easier to get jobs that way, because there's a lot of English speaking link builders on Upwork, and I can add more value to my clients if I focus on the multilingual campaigns rather than the English speaking ones. And the project management is something that then, I kind of also slipped into again last year. But it's So I do both because it kind of is a nice balance. Like it's two different things. I don't do the same all the time, which I really like. Yeah, so that's how it changed a bit.
Cool. And Felice?
Yeah, so I think I will repeat, but this is a pattern that I think happens for everybody. And you start doing everything for everybody, which is exactly what I did in the design for what concerns design, of course, because that was what I knew how to do. But when you work online, you know, in our kind of jobs, you're also kind of the computer guy, and you're interested in a number of things, and you try your hand on many things. But in the end, I had to recognize that there were just 24 hours in my day, only so much that I could do, and I could only deliver value, as you mentioned, by focusing on the stuff that I was best at, that I had the best process for, and that I could find people in need of that. So I think this is what changed the most, is selectivity for what concerns clients and projects. This is definitely probably the most important thing. Because of working with a selected pool of clients, it's more rewarding, because again, if you can create consistently, if you can give results consistently, that's the reward of the job, and that's the reason why I'm still passionate. I keep doing what I do. So that's what changed the most, selectivity.
Yeah, and that's maybe the number one tip that I always give freelancers who ask, how to get started, is avoid the approach that really most people take at first, which is just go for everything, right? Because the best thing you can really do is focus on your best skills, where you can add the most value, and on selecting the types of clients that you can have the biggest impact with. And that's a skill that you get better at in time. As you work with more types of clients, you also kind of figure out what to look for in a client. But it's something that's always good, even from the very beginning, to think about, is to analyze, you have a lot of projects on Upwork that pop up every day, and you can look, out of 20, 50 projects that you've looked with, which are the top 5 or 3 that appeal to you the most, and what can you really learn from that would be, traits of what to look for in a client. Why did you really like those specific projects the most, and why do you think that you're a really great fit for them? And then kind of really focus on just those. You don't have to apply on all 50. Apply on those 3, and then come back tomorrow and find the other top 3, So rather than just look once and apply at a bunch of things, it's better to, I'd say, look more on a consistent basis and really look for the best projects where you have the best chance also of landing them. And we have here our first question. And since there's, I think Ross and Anouk both have their own agencies, somebody's asking, if you have, well, this is a general question. Can you talk about building an agency? But let's take one thing from there. And I would ask, why did you decide to kind of start your own agency, and how does that help you in your freelancing career?
Sure. So having an agency on Upwork's a little bit different. Just the way the structure is, it makes things a little bit difficult. But realistically, if you can do it right, you can be really successful. The reason that I done it was pretty much what Felice said. You have 24 hours of the day, and I want to achieve more. I want to grow. I want to be bigger, and I want to have more time doing things that I enjoy as well. If I can find someone who's skilled in ads, for instance, who's a lot better than me, that's their specific niche, why should I not bring them onto my team and make profit upon them, and ultimately build as an agency and build together? So they get paid, I get paid, and we're both happy. As long as the standards are kept to the same standards that my freelancing profile is, I'm happy.
Nice. Anouk?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's basically, you only have so many hours in a day, and you can only take so many projects as one person, and you can take on more if you have a bigger team that can actually help you do the job.
Yeah.
So.
And now a question that I think everybody who's getting started will have, and I already see it a few times here. Tips on getting your first project. Can you share your experience on how you actually got your first project, and basically what tips you might have for others?
Sure. So be as personal as possible. Honestly, I was probably the opposite of Felice. I applied for, in my first month, I think I spent about $1,000 just building connections and investing. The tactic I went with was the more people who could see my profile, the higher the chance of me getting a job. Once you get your first 2 or 3 projects, it becomes really easy. Honestly, applying for jobs going forward from there is very easy, but the first job is a big hurdle. And don't send long A4 pieces of paper to a client. Keep it really short and simple.
Yeah, tell me about it. I had that problem as well. I could go on and on when I was starting, but you don't necessarily need to. So actually, one thing that helps me a lot, because I have a tendency to write quite a bit still, always, is I always, before sending something, once I've written it, I kind of take a break for a few minutes. So I detach myself from it. And then I reread it before sending it and kind of think, do I really need to, what don't I really need? What isn't really important to mention to this particular client? And I kind of delete a bunch of stuff and then send it. For
sure. Another thing is I don't apply for jobs that are older than 10 hours, mainly because I'll have a mass amount of applications already. I try stick between 1 and 2 hours, and I seem to find a really good response rate. I guess that's just maybe me spending a lot of money and working out a good tactic for us.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's that. I usually tell people within the first 24 hours. It's really interesting that you actually look even closer to that, to max 10. But yeah, that's always good because that's when people are most active, right? It's if they've posted a project today, by tomorrow, if they've gotten enough proposals to pick somebody, then they're probably not going to keep looking, right? If they've made a short list in the first day, then after that, there's not going to be really a need to keep looking for somebody, even if they haven't started the job right away. Like even if, they're not going to actually start the job for another week or a month, if they've already made that short list, they might not read what they get after that. So being responsive is really a great key.
Yeah, all right. But I would say it still depends on the project itself. You can, I'm not sure now if you can see it with every profile with the job. If you can, like I can see it with how many people applied, and then also when the client last saw the job, so when he was last online in a way. So even if you have a project that's been online for a while, but they haven't actually hired anyone yet, and the applications are not that many, and the client was online recently, it can still work out. So if you think you are a good fit for it, it still makes sense to apply, I would say.
Yeah, especially, and that can really that can make sense sometimes, especially if it's been a project that's been around for like 2-3 weeks, still haven't started. In those cases, especially if it's a more complex thing where they're looking for something really specific, might not have found somebody, so it might still be worth it in that case. All right, and Felice, for you?
Yeah, I would add, well, great tips. First of all, you said it all, but I would add just one thing for the first job. Probably it is a number game, but not the way most people believe. Like it is a number game, but even though there are so many job posting on Upwork, it doesn't mean that there are so many jobs that you have an opportunity of getting. And this is what I got wrong in the beginning. I thought those jobs were all for me. All right. So if instead, or if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, focus on those few jobs that come up every day, and that you can reach out and say something unique that you can say only to that person, and that will make a real connection with the person that wrote the ad. So even then, be really selective. Like if you're sending 10 applications a day, it means most probably that you're not focusing enough. Like if you're able to find 10 jobs that you can do well and you're a perfect fit for, either you're an all-star class, I don't know what you're doing on Upwork, you should be making millions, like you should have people are lined up at your door, or you're not focused enough.
All right, and we have here another kind of switching to a different topic a bit, but somebody's asking what, from each of your perspective, would impact how appealing their profile looks to potential clients. So in other words, what kind of what do you look at your own profile to help you kind of stand out to clients that you would recommend to other freelancers?
That's a pretty good question. I guess it's the description. The description is what they're going to resonate with. So for instance, if you're applying for let's say you're applying for a marketing job, but your description only has customer support or admin work, then it's not going to resonate because your profile doesn't match what they're looking for. So only apply for jobs that actually match your skill set, and keep your profile up to date and keep all your descriptions up to date, and you should match well.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Sorry.
Oh,
Anouk,
sorry. No, I just wanted to add, so one of the project management job that I do is actually also hiring freelancers on Upwork. So I also kind of sit on the other side of the table, and I look at the freelancers that work with on their profiles. And it's definitely the description that you look at, also because if you're busy, you don't have too much time to read through these long messages of everything. So really focus on the most important points. And if there's a job post that is for something really specific, let's say someone wants to write medical content. If you're a copywriter and you have experience writing about medical content, it should be in your description, because that's the kind of like keywords that you look for. You don't just look for content writer in general. You want to look for that content writer that writes about medical topics. So if you have that kind of knowledge, add it to the description.
100%.
Yeah. And Felice?
What concerns me, I'll be honest. I periodically change the description on my profile. I haven't seen either skyrocketing, my success, nor damaging it too much. So definitely great point about the keywords. Make sure the skills match the actual skills that you're interested in looking for jobs and that you can actually work with. Make sure that you tell a consistent story. That's all I can say. Then for what concerns, the wording, or how should you structure, should you copy testimonials in the body of the description? I don't know. I tried many things. I don't see a pattern. I see many successful freelancers because I do snoop at everybody that's successful on Upwork profile. I do that as a pastime. And it's difficult to see a pattern emerging. So that's my experience.
Yeah. And it can also, here for this particular thing, it can depend on your category of work as well, because for things like, Russ and Anouk, and for myself, where it's marketing related, here, the way you present yourself text-wise matters, and how you highlight, because it's not necessarily strictly about the visual aspect. But if you're working, for instance, in design or in a creative category, people might be way more interested in seeing examples of your work than they care about how you write the text.
Sorry, I may have not be clear, but I'm not saying it doesn't make a difference what you say, but what concerns the structure of how you build the description, like if it needs to be short, or if it needs to be long, or how many words, or how many, that I don't have a direction on that, and I don't think it's worth it to spend too much time thinking on it. Say what you need to say. As you say, every industry has their specific needs. I can totally see that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Another thing I look at the profile picture as well. Some people have profile pictures of them in a pub or something like that. Have at least a somewhat professional profile picture. You don't have to be suited and booted, but look the part.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It really does make a big difference, because we're people at the end of the day, and we make a decision subjectively. So the way that you present yourself matters, even if it's a really small picture. So that's a really easy tip that anybody can apply. It's just look professional in your photo and have a clear background, so the focus is on your face, not on it kind of makes sense. That does matter quite a bit. And also, to your earlier points, you can also, first of all, I want to address that this is a good reason why you should have specialized profiles, because that gives you a way to appear, to have a profile that's suitable to 3 types of clients instead of 1, right? So you can have your general profile, and then for the top 2 things that you spend most of your time doing, like for us, it's email campaigns, and for Anouk, it would be SEO, and for Felice, it's not designs but brand identity design, so it's way more specific. So leveraging those specialized profiles is a really easy way for you to be able to capture clients on your top 2 types of services that you offer. And you can also, if you're getting started and you're not really sure how to think about what words to use or what kind of information to focus on, you can also reverse engineer that. So first, you can look for clients. You can figure out what are the top clients that you're interested in working with, and what kind of words are they using, what are they writing in their descriptions, and what are they kind of looking for. And you can adapt your own description based on that, based on their own feedback. All right, and here I have somebody's asking, I'm just starting out on Upwork. I have sent about 15 proposals, but I only got one response. What do I need to do better? I think that all of the tips that all 3 of you shared earlier apply in terms of getting your first one. I also want to add that it's not necessarily a bad thing, that out of 15 proposals, you got one response.
Yeah,
it's all a ratio game, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about how many jobs you apply for versus how many people you interview, then how many jobs you can actually get the job for. It takes time. If it was overnight, everyone would be a freelancer.
Yeah,
great point.
Yeah, and this kind of this kind of ratio can improve as you get better at fine-tuning fine-tuning which kinds of clients you select, how responsive you are, and what you say, etc. But the fact that you got your first response is a good thing, and what you can already learn from that is figure out, what did you do for that one, for that proposal? Were you more responsive about it? Was it just a better fit for you? What can you learn about? And when you're sending your next proposals, do less of what you were doing for the other 14 and more of what you were doing for that one that got your response. And that's kind of how you can think about improving on an ongoing basis.
May I say a word about commitment here? Because I see like a lot of people, they want to change their lives. And then if they can do it in 15 days, then it means it's not working. It's the system that is not working. But I think it's very important. You need to realistically assess, if you're here to change your life, to find the best client of your life and build a successful freelancing career. It's realistically, it's not something that you can do in 15 days or 1 month or 3 months or 6 months. So what is that perfect client that can give you the work of your dreams worth to you? Because if it's only worth 15 days of searching, then probably that client is not what you pictured in your mind. So commitment, I think, first of all, and it's for Upwork as it is for any other thing. Like, you cannot say something is not working if you didn't commit to it first.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and this is why, sometimes people ask me, because they have full-time jobs and they're asking, like, should they quit their full-time job to go full in for freelancing? Sometimes the right answer is, well, start getting into the rhythm of it. You don't have to quit your job necessarily. Start seeing kind of what your ratio is and everything else, and then go in full time when you're really ready to. And yeah, like somebody actually asked here, how long did it take to land your first client? So anytime I ask that question, I get a very different response. It can be as little as a day. It can be as much as 3 months, right? Because you can never really know. It kind of depends from person to person. And there are so many factors in the middle. Like, first of all, how ready is your client to start? Because, somebody might be posting a project now to see if they can find talent, but then only be looking to start in 3 months from now, right? So it can really depend on, if you kind of want to get started fast, one of the strategies that you can look for is look for urgent projects. Look for clients who are specifically saying that I need to start right away, right? Those are more likely than others to kind of give you a response quickly. But like Felice said, it is about commitment, and it's really, if this is the kind of the lifestyle that you think is right for you, then it should be worth the patience as well.
Yeah, and maybe something to add. Sorry, it's also, at least in my position right now, it's also not that every job you apply for and you get the response, and let's say you have a call, you really get the job in the end. Like, it still happens, even though when I'm on the call with the client and they are super keen and they tell you, yes, that sounds great, and all of this, a week later suddenly it's like, okay, the project was cancelled, or they don't message anymore, or they don't reply, and it still happens after years of doing it. So it's not something, I mean, in the beginning when you start out and it happens, it affects you more. Now it's just whatever, like you just move on.
Yeah, exactly. Don't really care.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it still happens, and it's not something like, it's normal basically.
Like,
it's just a game where you just need to be really persistent, and you need to not give up in a way.
Sure, I agree with that. We've changed everything, so we're a lot more efficient in terms of, for instance, if Felice wants a call and he's a client, we limit all of our calls to 15 minutes now until the project starts. Main reason is otherwise you end up in calls consistently where people are asking for you to do a marketing plan for free or this or that. You know, if you have over 15 minutes, you start getting their life story and you go into a dead end, really. So it's all about being efficient and being able to give the most value to someone on the phone in that 15 minutes.
Yeah. And here I want to highlight, because at some point somebody, we were talking about the project catalog, and they gave you a great tip, which is that they kind of leverage the project catalog on Upwork as a way to do, have those lead generation and have those first calls paid. Basically what she was doing was she put a project on her project catalog where you could purchase, 30-minute consulting session, right? Yeah. And then that way you're also getting paid for those consulting sessions, and it's also lead generation for then clients that might turn out to have you might have a much bigger project with.
For sure, having projects on that project on the new project tool is fantastic. It's great for lead generation. We get a lot of people come through that every week. Probably about 6 to 7 people come through every week, and we have a chat with them and go from there. Really, it's a really good way to get people through. And
the great thing about it is that you set it up once, as opposed to bidding on projects, which you always have to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You set it up once and then it's there. Yeah, yeah. And it just kind of the added the benefit over time is huge, right? Because it just keeps adding to it. All right, and here I have somebody's asking for Ross, and I think I'm going to build on this question to everybody else. And he's asking, what is the best book or course that you would recommend to learn advanced email marketing automation? And what I would add to that, so that it's relevant to everybody who's joining us, is from all of you, what kind of are your top recommendations in terms of what to learn for people who are working or trying to work in your category?
Sure. Russell Brunson's got amazing stuff. He's obviously ClickFunnels owner. His stuff's amazing. He's got a book called 101 Secret A/B Testing, and the stuff in there is magic. It's really, really good. I think the book's on like $10. It's great. It's a huge paper book. I find all of his stuff really good. You can watch it all online for free. It's well worth it, really.
Cool. Anouk?
So what for my category now, basically?
It doesn't have to be. It can be just if there are any, like for me, it's not necessarily related to marketing. One of the books that I recommend the most to people is Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. I think it's a great book, regardless of what you work in, to read. So it doesn't have to be strictly about what you do, but kind of what's your recommendation of what people would learn that you found the most impactful? Okay, so it's actually not a book then, but Tim Ferriss podcast is what I find amazing. Yeah. Like, it's really, you need to take time for it and you need to listen to it, but the conversations are really, really insightful and helpful about all kind of different topics. Not all of them obviously related to the work and so on, but in general, that's one of the main ones. And then in terms of if anyone would want to get into link building, for example, Ahrefs, actually, which is a tool that you use to evaluate backlinks, has a lot of free tutorials. They have a whole catalog full of tutorials, which are really, really insightful. They have a YouTube channel. So I think that would be a good starting point. Yeah, I love Tim Ferriss's podcast. I've been listening to it for years. And for anybody who's specifically interested in marketing, he has had several episodes with Seth Godin, and they're all just amazing. So Seth Godin, most people, if you're in marketing, you probably know who he is. He talks like he's writing a book as he talks. I don't know how he does it, but those podcasts are really great. And Felice?
Right, well, this thing is obvious for my industry, so I'm gonna say it anyway. But for those of you who don't know it, but everybody knows, have a look at Chris Doe. That will teach you a bit about the business side of design. You can learn design everywhere, but the business side of design is it's a well-kept secret in the industry. And if there is one book that I say you should read, whether you're a consultant, an agency, that should be Win Without Pitching by Blair Enns. That, you know, I think the problem in our industry, most freelancers, agency owners feel like they are at the mercy of their clients and they feel powerless. Win Without Pitching puts everything into perspective. It is we meet in the middle with our clients to create value, to create something new, and the client as the exact, you know, it's 50-50. Nothing happens without the professional, nothing happens without the client. There is no power imbalance here unless you accept that there's a power imbalance. So that's the concept overall, but it's very hands-on. I really suggest everybody to read it. And another thing that I would suggest is do not drown yourself into your industry literature. Like you're a graphic designer, you're you know, whatever you do not read only about your industry. Like read about everything. The broader your horizons, the more you can bring insights into your profession, and the more you will be able to outsmart your competitors.
That's a really great point. Because, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, you know, it kind of becomes, somebody referred to it once as like comfort food when if you're just reading about your industry. Like if you're in marketing or if you're in design, you're just reading about design, you're just going to hear the same ideas over and over again, right? There's only so many. They're going to be from different perspectives, but it's basically the same thing. So if you want to be creative and you'll be able to learn a lot about, you know, about design from things that have nothing to do with it, right? And this applies to any industry. If you want to be more creative marketer, don't try to learn from how to make, you know, 10 different strategies on marketing. Don't read that. Read something completely different, because you'll get inspiration from, you can get inspiration from anything virtually. So yeah, great point. And that also, what you said earlier, is something that I think we've had a focus group once with freelancers in my local area. And what I've learned from that focus group was that most freelancers charge less, at least in my area, charge less than they think their service is worth, because they think they need to in order to be competitive. And to your point, you know, you're not at the mercy of the client. If they're posting a project and they're willing to pay for something, it's because they need it. All right. And then everybody always wants to work with the right person. And of course, not everybody can afford to work with the best person, but that's why it's also important to be selective. But you have to keep in mind that even though multiple people are applying for a job, it doesn't mean that they're all going to be as good a fit for it as you. And when you're coming to the negotiating table, it's a 50-50 game. Everybody has to come out winning. So you're not at the client's mercy.
Great.
So great recommendations. Okay. Here, somebody's asking, what are the major things to take note of in writing a proposal in terms of proofreading and editing? And adding to that, I didn't get a reply on my proposal. Is it because I'm new to Upwork? So first of all, it depends on how many proposals you've sent. I don't think it matters that much that you're new to Upwork. Maybe you need to work a little bit harder when you're new, but you can definitely get responses. But then in terms of proofreading, editing, or how you structure your proposals, what are your thoughts on how to do that?
Keep it simple. Don't write long pages. Have maybe testimonials from other jobs, even offsite. And I guess just apply for enough where you know your own ratio. Otherwise, you're forever just going to apply for one today, one tomorrow. You know, you're never going to build a real ratio. Yeah.
Anouk?
Yeah, I mean, focus on the most important points. It does help, at least for me, it does help to work with templates, just because you don't have to type out everything again. And then what I usually do is I use the templates and I restructure them based on the job description and what they're looking for. But having that kind of like first setup of templates just to get started helps me to just save time and yeah, anything.
And for Felice?
Yeah, I agree. Working with a template, well, let's say I don't have a template, but I do work from an outline. Like I have a set of points that I want to touch on, and I know that the less points I'm able to touch on, and the less is the opportunity that I land the job in the end will be. So I'll say make a list of the important things, go for the connection first. Like the first thing that needs to happen when the client opens the proposal is to see that it has been written for them and it's not a cookie cutter text. So that's the most important part. If you can't go for that unique connection, your chances drop drastically. But still, if you think you can solve that problem, even if you don't have such a specific way of wording it or tailoring it, it's still worth it to say, stop trying to sell yourself, but rather sell how will you help me achieve my goals. Okay, and it's not that easy because not all job postings are that detailed that you can get what the goal is, but you're gonna have to use your intuition and your experience to get to that. And that's all. Yeah, like tell me. And I'm saying because I look for talent on Upwork, and I hire up on Upwork too. And so I'm speaking in what I would like to see in most of the proposals that I get. Most of the proposals are not like this, like they don't even address what the problem is. So that's it. Stop trying to sell yourself. Tell me how were you able to solve my problems in the past, if you were, or what process will you use to solve this problem, and why do you think that will work? Make a personal connection. I want to work with people that I like, that I trust. So show me that there's affinity. Okay, so that's what I suggest.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, if you don't have enough clarity to be able to do that, like Felice said, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to say, I want to help you, and I think that I can, and etc. But in order to give you a very specific blah blah blah, I need a bit more information, and ask for it, because quite often it's just that if the person that's posting a job is probably not an expert in your field, and sometimes they may really not know what information you're looking for, or they might just not know what kind of info you need in order to give them a proposal, and that can happen very often. So don't be afraid to ask questions.
One thing I do is I look through their reviews and see if I can get their first name from there, and then I can say hey and their name. If possible, if you can see anything about their company, look at them on LinkedIn and just understand what they're doing. Don't message them, don't add them on LinkedIn, but just view what they're doing and how you can benefit them, and then add that into your template.
Yes. Tip number one. I like that. Get the name if you can. That will really make the difference.
Yeah, and especially if like some projects you'll get more proposals than others. If I'm especially posting something about, let's say, creative work, where I expect I'm going to get a lot of proposals, one of the things that I do on purpose sometimes to kind of limit who I actually consider is I put my name at the end. I say kind regards in my name, and then I can already tell who's actually really paid attention all the way through, because they will mention my name and say,
attention to detail is really key. Otherwise, you're hiring someone who's not got any attention to detail.
Exactly. And just be aware of that if a client has mentioned their name in their project, then a lot of freelancers are actually going to include it, right? So it'll be a good idea for you to do that as well. And here I have a question which I think we can also kind of not just answer this question, but more focus on the tip around it. You'll understand what I mean. So somebody's asking how to find out if a client has ghosted them because they're not interested anymore, or ghosted because they didn't qualify for the work. So how would you answer that?
Look to see if they've hired on their job. It will say hired one, for instance. If they haven't replied in a week, just leave them, let them be. Normally after a week, we just count them as a loss. They're not really coming back. Some people do, some people don't. But for the most part, if they've hired, the chances are your chance is gone.
Yeah.
What can also happen, what I've had in the past, is where you might be in the interview process, they decide to hire someone else, you don't hear back from them, and then suddenly, like 2 or 3 months later, they message you out of the blue, and they're like, oh, are you still interested? Because they had hired someone else, it didn't work out, and then they come back to you. So it's not always a bad thing if they don't hire you immediately. They might still want to go for the cheaper option first. They realize that doesn't work out, and then they will come back.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would add just one thing is that the fact that you lost the job, it does not mean that you still have an opportunity to learn, though. And so be tactful, but keep reaching out. my personal approach is to keep following up until it makes sense to do so. The job is closed, you know. I try not to be annoying. Like once a week sounds like a reasonable amount of time to do it. Probably sooner in the beginning, follow up every few days for the first week. And then I would say, even when the job is closed, somebody else has been hired, reach out and ask, what could I have done to get the job? Or why somebody else got the job? Was it about the price? Was it about the way I framed my offer? Was it because I wasn't clear? Like you will not get an answer most of the time because you know, clients just want to move on. It's hard to hire and find the right person. And once they're done, clients, they're not never look back. But if you do get the chance, you're either building a relationship and you're getting some interesting insights that could really make a difference for you. So I'd suggest keep following up. And when you lost the job, ask why and try to be tactful, you know, don't be annoying.
Yeah. And just to add to that, so you can do that when you've been invited to submit something. You can follow up with clients. If you're just sending a proposal to a job, you can't follow up with them unless they first start the conversation with you. But what I would say that, you know, if that's the case where you just send a proposal and you're not being interviewed yet, so you can't reply back yet, you know, there's no point in I mean, I never look at personally. I never look back at, you know, what would happen with this project, because I get no value from it. You know, it doesn't help me in any way to spend time looking and wondering whether or not they picked somebody or whether or not they're ready to start, whatever. You know, I've sent it. And when they reply to me, that's great. That's when they become a lead, only when they reply. Until they've replied, it's a potential lead, right? And it's not worth investing a lot of thought into wondering whether or not I'm going to get it until they've actually replied, unless I've been invited, in which case it's different because they've already shown interest in your profile.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah,
And this question, yeah, go on.
One thing I like looking at after a couple of weeks is I'll look to see who they've hired and how much they've hired for. A lot of the time, for instance, they've hired someone who's 50% cheaper than me. It's a nice little thing to just understand what could have gone wrong, or a reason why they didn't choose you. Obviously, that could take you down a rabbit hole, so I only do it from time to time.
Yeah, and I think Felice, I think you also wanted to add something.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say it's gold. Like the biggest mistake, the thing that will make you waste most time is to think that you own things that you do not own. Like you do not own any client that didn't answer, that didn't ask you a question. Like the project is not yours until it is. And you need to make the distinction. Otherwise, you know, you need to keep moving forward until something works. If you focus on the stuff that it's not working, you will never be able to do that next step, you know. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
That is gold. Don't waste time on projects that are not yours yet.
Yeah. All right. And the next question touches into a topic that I really like, which is how do you organize your day and how do you stay productive?
That's a really good question. I don't follow any of kind of Elon Musk or Bill Gates kind of routines and stuff like that. We kind of work, because currently we're in Dubai, we work American time zone, as most of Upwork works that kind of time zone. So we try wake up at 11 a.m. and then just schedule a day out from there. I always try to do calls first and then deal with ongoing clients afterwards, and just keep everything kind of structured. Otherwise, you end up with people wanting calls right now and it gets quite messy.
Yeah. Anouk?
Yeah. So for me, there's two sides. There's the agency side, and then there's my freelancing project management side. For the agency side, we schedule most of the calls in the morning, so that kind of like before lunchtime, and then the afternoon, everyone just does their work, and we don't communicate as much anymore. We use Google Chat if there's anything, but everyone works remotely. We're not sitting in the same office or anything, so everyone has their own thing to work on. In general, for me, in terms of productivity, it's not something related to work, but and it might sound a bit weird, but for me, the most important is actually having a proper morning routine. Like I can't, and I've learned for myself, I can't get up, open the laptop and start working. I've done that in the beginning when I started freelancing. I was I woke up, I would open the laptop, I would start working, and I would close it and I would go to bed. Basically, that was like the first few months. And I've noticed that I wasn't productive. Like a lot of time you just sit in front of the laptop and you're not actually doing as much as you could. So also the nice thing with freelancing is that you don't have the 9 to 5 necessarily. So when you don't feel productive, it's fine to step away from the laptop and do something else and then start again when you feel better about working. But yeah, so for me, it's kind of that having the morning routine and the structure in the morning, and then starting when I have done that part, and then I can actually now focus on the work.
Cool. And Felice?
And for me, yeah, also my routine, like Ross, is dictated a bit by the fact that most of my clients are from the USA. But I still wake up relatively early. Like for me, it's early because like I can never get myself to get to work at 9 a.m. But in my job, I'm able to do that. So 9 a.m. my day starts, and I'm able, there's part of my work that I need long uninterrupted chunks of time to be able to do correctly, because it's creative work, it's a lot of research, it's a lot of thinking, it's a lot of focus. So I take advantage of the mornings until early evening, early afternoon, when my clients from the USA start getting antsy, and they want to get on a call, they want to check out progress, or we have weekly meetings with some clients with which I'm working in relevant positions. Like for example, I'm head of brand for a client, head of product for another client. So for those bigger endeavors, we do have weekly calls that I need to attend because the whole team depends on it. So I would say the key here, not finding the trick to productivity, but being realistic of what you're able to achieve in a day. Like how many calls can you realistically be on in one day before disrupting totally your ability to get anything done? And when do you need to have those calls? Like try to build structure into your day so the same thing happens day after day and you get used to it, and your internal clock, your productivity prime time syncs with the way you have built your day. So just be intentional. And I don't know, I tried the Pomodoro technique a lot which is work for 25 minutes, take 5 minutes off. I feel that in those moments where I struggle a lot to be productive, that stupid trick could help you get back on track. So yeah, also as Anouk said, when you need to take a break, if you're not getting anything done, just walk away, go for a run, do anything but nothing. So
yeah,
break it down.
Yeah, I'm quite particular about tracking what I actually get done from what I set out to do. And I've noticed an interesting thing that ties into what all three of you are saying, is that I've had this period at one point where I was really working a lot, and I knew that I was working too much, but it was just a really busy period. But eventually, after a couple of months, I had to slow down because you need to rest. And what I've realized was, when I've kind of set better restrictions on how long I'm going to work in a day and how much rest I need to get, what I've realized very interestingly is that I was getting just as much done when I was working much less, just because I was a lot more rested. I look back and I realized I'm getting just as much done in a week as I was before, but I'm working a lot less, right? So there's a difference between working and being productive, and knowing how to balance, like Felice said, it's just really important to be realistic about how much you can really get done in a day, and make sure that you give yourself enough time to rest as well. And like Anouk, I mean, morning routines for me are also really important. And I spend a lot of time thinking about productivity because I'm not naturally, I'm not naturally, I'm a procrastinator. I hate to admit it, but it's true.
Yeah.
So I have to be very intentional about productivity. So there's, first of all, for me, it's important to have a space that's only about work. My office is only my office. It has nothing else there. And even if you're at home, if you can't have a room that's just your office, it's still good to try to have at least your workspace where it's only work focused, so you can focus on that. And morning routines, I'm a big coffee fan, so my every morning starts with a great cup of coffee. It's a really good investment that I recommend. And also I have behind me, you can't really see it, but I have a sofa. So if I need to take a nap at my office, I can do that. So that was very important when I got my office, that I have that option as well. All right, next question. I have here somebody who's asking if the currency of reviews matters to client. And to explain, recently I took a week off after a consistent year and then worked on another platform for a few weeks, and my ratings were a month old. Does that really matter to clients? Do you need to explain absences?
No.
What do you guys think?
No.
It's not like your usual 9 to 5 where you have to explain why you've had like a leap year or something like that. You know, the clients want your skills and your knowledge. If you took 2 years off, they don't really care. As long as you still possess the skill and knowledge, that's what they're interested in.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I don't think it matters at all virtually. And I don't think anybody even looks at the dates. Like I look at people's reviews when I'm selecting. I don't look at the dates.
Yes. I do actually. I do look at the dates, but only like if you have multiple people applying for the job and they're all equally experienced and have very similar profiles, and I have someone who has like recent really good reviews and someone who hasn't worked for 2 years and like the reviews are 2 years old, I might lean towards actually hiring the person that has recent really good reviews. So I would say short breaks and so on don't really matter, but then if you have, let's say you're not on the platform for 2 years, I would almost consider it similar to when you start out again, except that you have obviously profile in your reviews, but it's not going to be as easy as when you left because you had that gap. At least that's how I see it from a client perspective.
What I would add for that, and definitely 1 month is not, it's really not a long time between reviews. Yeah. Especially if you have, if you have anything in progress, because there's also the idea of, if you've been working with the same clients for the past 2 years, you don't have reviews, but you're still active on the platform. And also something that I always like to remind people is that to clients, what matters is your work experience and your qualifications, not strictly your experience on Upwork. So if you've still been working, for the past year, just not on Upwork, make sure to just highlight what you've been doing in this past year, because at the end of the day, clients will care about what you've been doing, not which platform you've used. So this is another thing that people always ask me, like, if they're moving to freelancing and after having worked full time, should they basically start as entry level? No, of course not. Your experience matters completely. You just need to make sure that you highlight it in your proposals and in your profile. All right. Next question here is a simple one. Should we focus on a specific skill, or should we expand and kind of have, multiple skills? How do you guys think about that?
Focus on a skill first, build up. Once you start getting a client base, then start building in other skills. Walk before you run. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I did it differently when I started, but that was also, I think, not the best necessarily, but actually it's not 100% true, because when I started, I did focus on the translations. It was just a different skill than what I'm doing now. But yeah, like choose one thing that's where you're actually good at, and then build up on that.
Yeah. To help you have some confidence here, let imagine the market is full of noise. Upwork is full of noise. Where clients are, there's a lot of noise. So you need to cut through the noise, and the sharpest your offer is, the easier it is to cut through the noise, because the smallest is that area that you're competing in, the less competition there will be, and that is really where you can make a difference. So talking about one thing will help you cut through the noise, and in the end, once you have a foot in the door, this is what happens to me over and over again. I'm a brand identity designer. Every relationship with my clients starts as a brand identity design project, but then I am the creative guy of the team. Who do you think they will ask? Where can I get a website done? Or who will design our app? Do you know anybody? So even if it's something that you cannot do, or you don't have the expertise to do, you don't have the interest to do, you can leverage that to build a network, or maybe you can develop the skills if you're interested. So I'd say do not fear a specialization in your offer, because what you should use in your offer what you do best, and then after your foot is in the door and you own the client trust, they will naturally come to you for everything that concerns and revolves around your profession. So it's not pigeonholing you.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It's much easier, to expand on what you do with an existing client than to find a new one. It's a lot less work, right? So it's always a good idea to upsell if you're doing multiple types of things. Have this structured approach that makes it more likely for you to get the job that the client is looking for currently, because then you very likely will be able to upsell other services later if they're related to that project, and that you could also help with. Here's an interesting question. What was the most challenging part throughout your journey so far, and how did you handle it?
For me, it was filtering clients that I didn't want to work with. A lot of the time, especially with Upwork, and when you're at the lowest stage, you can get a lot of people who say, yeah, we want to work together. We want to do 5 hours a week, and they'll give you 10 hours of work, and they expect it to be done. It's about understanding client mentality and who you want to work with and the projects that you want to work on. Because a lot of our clients, we've built friendships with them. Some of them we've gone to different parts of the world with. We've gone to dinner with a lot of them. That essentially they're friends to us. And when we first started Upwork, it was completely different. We did work with some people that I wouldn't want to see a lot. So it's just about filtering people and understanding what they want out of this project.
Cool. Anouk?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. For me, I think it was also, especially in the link building space, there's a lot of times, a lot of situations where people are actually asking for free work, as they're not saying it's free work, but they are using it as a way of, they make it sound like it's part of the proposal. And especially let's say they want to have 100 websites as examples to get the job or to even be considered and stuff like that. In the beginning, it's very easy to fall into the trap, and you just share your database in a way, because you kind of assume, okay, that's how it's done. Now I actually, whenever I see that even in the job description, I don't even bother applying anymore, because you already know they're most likely not going to pay you. And they're most likely just going to take your assets and just go, basically. And so yeah, it's similar to, I guess, filtering out the kind of clients you want to work with, and having a proper look at the job descriptions. And actually something else I also look at, it's not always the case, but I've also become more strict with, so clients also have a profile, right? They have a success rate, they have a hire rate, you can see how much money they've spent. So if there's a situation where I'm already doubtful about the job description, and then I see they have never hired anyone, but they've posted a lot of jobs, they've been active and so on, I also usually don't actually bother spending time even applying, because it looks like it's one of these profiles where they just either they're trying to get work done for free, or trying to see what kind of talent is on the platform. I'm not sure, but it's just not something I would spend my time on.
For me, there are two things I've struggled with, and I still struggle with, so I have no solution, but I will tell you about the struggles. So it's again, I will repeat, not focusing enough. And the thing is, it's not every project is as cold as, oh, lead comes in, if you're interested, you say yes, if you're not interested, you say no. Sometimes a very cool person comes with a project, but they don't have the budget, but the project is cool and the person is cool. You're gonna have a great time if you do, but you need to cut your rate in 4 to work for that, and you put at risk the quality of the work that you do for the other clients. So there is a lot to consider, and I, to this day, am not that good at it. Like, if somebody comes with me with something I'm very excited to do, and that they are cool people, I have a very hard time saying no. The solution to that is the second thing I struggle with, that is freelancing. Sometimes it's a very lonely business. And even more so when you get to a certain success threshold, you feel like nobody can understand you anymore. Like you felt at home in that freelancing community that, oh, I can't get a client. Why are client like this? Why they do not understand? When you start to make it work, you feel like you go through that threshold of success, let's say, and you feel like absolutely lonely. It's very difficult building a network of people that you can trust, because the quality of your work now need to be at a level that like you're not able to access the quality of the work that you are able to produce. And go figure if you can accept the quality of somebody else. So it becomes very difficult. And even here is something I really struggle with. I have people I work with and that I trust with my life, but they come once in a lifetime, and I'm already scared for what will happen when they will move on to be more successful than myself and to greener pastures. So that's something. These are my two struggles. I always struggle with it, and I still do. So
yeah, and for me as well, it's I would say that the thing that I was paying the least amount of attention to when I got started, and it was especially it has an especially meaningful impact then. And I know that other people, at least in I think it's a mentality thing that's in my country, with people are too humble sometimes, but I was very, very relaxed with payment terms. And sometimes that can really, as a freelancer, cause you some issues. If you're working with a small amount of clients, for instance, and you're saying that, if it's an ongoing engagement and you basically tell them that, you get paid at the end of the month, then sometimes that can really cause problems for you, because you're working for a whole month before requesting payment. And then once you've requested payment, it might still take a while until they pay you. And you can end up in a situation where it takes 45 plus days for you to get a payment for something they've been working for, right? And that's not a pleasant situation for you to be in if you really depend on those funds and when they come in. So it's very different if you're working hourly, because then it's much more straightforward. You get paid more often. But if you're working fixed price, I think that something's important is to decide what are your payment terms, not just how much you're asking for, but what makes sense. Because like for me, for instance, if it's a brand new client, I don't have a lot of information about their company. First of all, the first payment will have to be made in advance when I start working with them, not even just set in escrow, but made in advance. And this, it's not even just about building trust. That could be one of the aspects. But another thing that this helps me solve is that I never end up waiting so long for a payment, right? Because if I ask them for a payment today, and let's say it takes 10 to 15 days to pay them, it's much, much better this way than waiting a month and then it takes 10 to 15 days for them to pay it. So that for me would be one thing. I think, Ross, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, it's just being transparent and understanding exactly what you want from the relationship, especially with milestones and stuff. As you mentioned, it can take 45 days to get paid. And for the first few jobs, you need that money quite a lot, so you have to look after yourself as well. So be really transparent with the client and say exactly what you want out of this, and try build a mutual relationship where you can get the money quite fast and he can get his project quite fast, and you both get exactly what you want.
All right, and here's another question. I think this is going to be especially relevant to Anouk and Ross. I also have my own thought on it, and I'll see what Felice thinks as well. But the question is, in your experience, when in life, as a freelancer on Upwork, should you create an agency?
When you realize that your time's more valuable and you can't really go much higher than your hourly rate already. When you realize you can offer loads more services as well. For instance, I'm really good at email marketing, but you're really good at ads. I can't be good at ads and email marketing and this and that. When you can kind of make a catalog rather than just a one-piece plan.
Yeah. And for you, Anouk?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's a bit different because, to be honest, I had my agency outside of Upwork for the majority of the time. And I've only just recently actually set up my agency profile. So I think it was 2 years ago.
By the way, I think that you can think of it as generally, not when to set up an agency on Upwork, but when to start an agency.
Okay, so then I've actually, so for the link building side, I've never actually wanted to do the link building anymore. I've always wanted to do have the agency, because I personally don't really enjoy doing the work itself, like the actual work. And I yeah, so I just didn't, that was my main, I'm just being honest now, and this was my main reason why I actually wanted to set up the agencies, because I didn't enjoy doing the actual physical work anymore. And I know there are people who can benefit from it, or who might be more driven at doing that. And that's, yeah, so for me, it was never like I wasn't freelancing and then I decided to do an agency. I actually set it up from the beginning on as wanting to do an agency in that space.
Okay. Yeah. And so my perspective is, first of all, I think it's worth giving a bit of background, which is that I have an older sister. She's 80 years older than me. And by the time I started working, she already had her own agency started. And kind of knowing the ins and outs of having an agency, I decided at some point that I don't really want to have one. But to the point that both Russ and Anouk made, I don't necessarily want to do or enjoy doing every part of marketing that I would have to do for clients myself. And I also, it limits me, right? Like I can't be good at ads and be good at email marketing, like Russ said. So my different solution to that, because I also don't want to, I think that when you're thinking about starting your own agency, there's quite a lot that goes into it besides just outsourcing the work, which is the financial aspect and managing people's incomes and things like that if you're hiring people full time. So for me, kind of the middle ground, this is kind of how I fell into project management. It's that I want to work with more people and be able to offer more than what I can do on my own. But in order to kind of avoid all of the things that I don't like about owning an agency, I'm going with the approach of I'll work with clients as a project manager and I'll help them find the right people and I'll coordinate the projects, but I won't deal with the ongoing having an agency myself. And Felice, what about you? I know that you're
I have the same approach as you. It's just that I have a trusted pool of freelancers that I work with. Some of them I have on retainer. You know, I don't call myself an agency. Technically, that may be an agency. But one thing I would like to make clear, yeah, that also helped me do more for the client that I was working with. And now it would allow me to, find clients for disciplines that I'm not specifically qualified for. That is definitely a plus. But one thing that's worth mentioning is that it is not the necessary evolution of being a freelancer opening an agency. You can keep being an independent consultant, an independent freelancer, if that's what works for you, if that's your passion, if you love the work, hands-on work. I think you're totally free to do that. And there is somebody may think that there is a ceiling to the amount of money that you can make as a consultant, as a freelancer. And that is what the deterrent for most. That's why most people focus on growing as soon as possible. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong, you have more experience in this than me. But I think that's probably the wrong approach, because that's not necessarily it. Like, there is no ceiling to the amount that you can charge per hour or per project as an independent consultant. So I think that's what you feel works best for you, just follow your intuition.
For sure. I think there's definitely an hourly limit where people do start getting a bit stray. We've just gone past the $150 mark, and jobs are definitely going down, but then the filtering is going up. We're managing a lot better people, we're working with way nicer people and building cooler projects, but we're getting a lot less projects, which is where I feel like my freelancer profile would still be perfectly fine. I probably could go up to $500 an hour and find one or two really good clients who want to spend that kind of money, but the jobs will go down. So it's if and but, really. I think, there's a person who I'd love to speak to at Upwork. She's a freelancer and she makes $125 being a customer support rep. And she's in a job role that ultimately me or you may say, okay, that's worth $10, $15 per hour. And she's defined the odds. And I think she's made over 100 grand. So she's done really well. So realistically, yeah, I think your hourly rate could keep going.
Yeah. And from my perspective, this is kind of why for a long time I've chosen my specialty in the ad field, because it's no longer about how many hours you're working. It's about what's the value that you're returning, right? So if you're returning great value for people, then you can ask for a small percentage of that, right? And they'll be happy to pay it, even if on paper it seems like a lot of money, or based on the amount of time you're working, it seems like it's a high, per hour rate. But the clients, ultimately what matters is that they get more value from working with you than they're paying. So you can also think of not so much in terms of how much time you should be spending on work, but how can you add more value? And in doing that, you can figure out ways to increase what you're charging as well.
Sure.
All right, and here, since we also this next question is good because it ties into something that was a recurring theme for us, which is how do you choose the right job for you? And I would rephrase that a little bit and be more specific to, we all talked about filtering, right? So what do you consider when you're filtering clients? What are generally applicable things that you're kind of thinking about that either qualify or disqualify clients?
Their attitude, their budget, their timeline. One thing you mentioned was urgent and emergency jobs are normally good. We've had some really good hits with urgent jobs, but we've had some really bad hits as well, where people actually want jobs cheaper, but done tomorrow. So that's kind of an if and but. It's just understanding kind of what you would expect from a client. If they try negotiate your wages and stuff like that, they're not really respecting the knowledge that you've spent. I've been doing this for over 10 years. I'm not willing to work for $5 an hour. It's just not worth it. So if they're trying to negotiate down, then normally we cut them out as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think something I look at as well is the same way clients, like I said before, look at you and your reviews. You can do the same on the client side. You can actually see old jobs they've had. You can see the feedback they get from freelancers and also the feedback they give to freelancers, which also gives you some insight into what kind of a client they are, or how they are basically. So that's also something I would look at.
Yeah, you said it all. I would just add, but it's just, reiterating what you just said. You need to work with people that you like, that respect your work, that value your work. Doesn't matter, like the more you move forward in the profession and you develop in the profession, the less the money is central to what you do. Like the fact that there must be the budget to get the work done, that it's a given. Like without budget, there is nothing that you can do. If there is no budget or not enough budget, you cannot help. But then what's most important after the budget is, will this be a good relationship? Will we both, will we work well together, or will I dread this client call? Like I want to work with people that I can't wait to jump on the phone with to hear how their day has been, how the campaign that we worked on was successful, and what are we going to work on next. Like I want my relationship with clients to be exciting, because that's what I do every day. And I didn't leave my full-time job to add stress to my life, of having to run behind clients and building a cage around myself. So I think
also good one point to add is also just general respect. I think the same way clients expect you to have a professional looking picture and articulate yourself properly, you can expect the same from a client. And I, like most of them do anyway, but there are some where you get messages, and I'm a little bit sensitive maybe, but if I get like the one sentence, not even high, nothing, just like, it just seems like just, not taking the time really to actually look at the proposal and just reply briefly. And then the communication continues like that. I'm usually not, I might not just not continue the whole conversation and actually taking on the job, because it already seems like it might not be a very nice relationship that you will have with the client.
Did they ask for you to fill out a form or a personality test or do a trial? Normally an instant no. Even the word trial just kind of triggers me. And normally if they say trial, I say, okay, it's going to be a paid trial, and then they don't reply. So stray away from those kind of things, I guess.
I agree. Like the signs are clear and come pretty early in the process. It's very difficult that the best client in the world all of a sudden turns into the worst client in the world. Like the signs are early. to see them. Like an Upwork proposal, there is so much information into it, into the form, not the proposal, the job posting, into the way it is worded, the way it is, try to look for clues there, because they come early.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I want to add though that there are some cases in which the clients do post pay tests, and and they can be very good clients. I've done that. That's why I'm insisting, because it was a specific thing where somebody wanted to design a website, and they've had and somebody before who didn't really do a great job. So this time around, what they wanted to do was test more people, but it was a paid test, and it was just for one landing page, and it was essentially 3 different professionals making the same landing page, and we would pick from that, which one we want to move forward with. But it's not like winner takes all. It's all 3 get paid for their work, right? So that's very different. And then we picked somebody. So yeah, I don't want. If you're really good, you should still bid on those kinds of projects, please. All right, and somebody asks here. This is a tricky question. I don't know if maybe you guys can answer it. How do you define or measure the value that you add to a client? I think this can depend quite a bit. But what do you guys think?
Sure. So we work out how much money an email makes. And that kind of defines, sometimes we've not done jobs on full commission, but sometimes we've done a fixed price plus a commission on top on how much money it makes. So for instance, if we know an email campaign made, let's say $50,000, and we want 10% of that, that's kind of how we work it out. Obviously, in some other jobs, that can be quite difficult to work out.
Yeah, I sometimes wish I was in a space where it's easier to measure. With SEO, and especially off-page SEO, it's very difficult because it's a very long process, and it takes a very long time to actually see results. So what I usually tell all the clients that we work with, I always say, the minimum that we work with them is for 3 months, because you don't see much before that. And you can't really expect after 2 weeks or 4 weeks to see results. And then I show them results from previous clients without showing the client names, but basically I can show them graphs where they can see the traffic numbers going up and stuff like that. So try to convince them a little bit using previous clients, but without obviously mentioning the client names or giving too much information.
And maybe ask questions, ask why they're doing a specific thing. Sometimes if you're lucky, or in time you can get good at this, you don't even need to be lucky every time. You may be able to hear a number at a certain point, and when you start from now, for example, you have a client that has a $1 million turnover a year, and they want to double that the next year, and that's why they are redesigning the website, because it would be central to the new marketing strategy. So that million year more and doubling the success of the company is dependent on the website that you are about to design, and you have a number to start working your way back from. How much should you charge? I don't have an answer to that, but that's definitely a starting point. And another thing is get some perspective. I see, for example, talking about my industry design, I see people designing logos for less than the price it costs to print the business card with the logo on. So get some perspective, it cannot be possible that the face of a company costs less than printing 250 business cards. So with experience and, find your network, find a place where you can ask these kind of questions. You can get perspective, see how much people charge, and only that way you can really start to understand what the value of what you're actually providing is. Like if you decide to go alone and client by client find your value, it will take you 100 years. So, rely on a network, ask a question, have your clients help you. You will find that if you're a good freelancer, this happened to rates, because you need to raise your rates, because we cannot pay so little to you. It's embarrassing to us, the amount of money that you ask. And I heard this happen many times. So
sometimes sometimes that's the interesting thing, that it can disqualify you in some cases. So if, for instance, you hope to work with big companies, but you charge a low rate just because you think you have to, that might actually disqualify you from big companies, because they look at your rate and they see that you're bidding under the market value of your skills. They might think that you're not that good because of that, or that you don't have that much experience. Or sometimes some people have minimum budgets that they need to spend and they can't hire you because you don't fall into that minimum budget. I've literally heard that. So your price is part of how you present yourself, and it's part of how you filter the clients that you reach out to. So if you want to work with clients at a certain stage, you have to think about what kind of rates do they expect, what kind of people do they expect to work with at that stage, right? And if you're highly underbidding that, then you're doing yourself a disservice, I think.
Yes.
And also this ties into value as well. From my perspective, is that the value that you add doesn't just depend on you. It never just depends on you. It very much depends on your client, on their company as well, because I can be doing the exact same thing. If I run an ad campaign for a brand new company that has literally just set up their website, the results of that are going to be massively different than me running the same exact campaign from somebody who gets 1 million views on their website per month already. So the impact of what you do is also directly tied to the stage of your client's business. And likewise, Ross, I'm imagining that this is part of your filtering process as well. I'm guessing you don't work with people who have on a commission basis with people who have an email list of 100 people, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, especially until I made quite a lot of money on Upwork, I didn't do commission. The main reason was going for commission jobs is awful. Especially on Upwork, it's just no way to go. But once you start getting bigger and you can understand how much profit you can bring into a company, on the basis that you're really confident about it, you can start doing a fixed price plus commission on top, and it's acceptable. But I would never do a full commission job or anything like that. And it has to be with a valuable company where the company can't just dissolve tomorrow and take my money.
Yeah, exactly. Like somebody literally said, one time they wanted to run ad campaigns. This was a long time ago, because now I obviously wouldn't consider that type of project, but they wanted to run campaigns of $500 a month for that was their ad budget. And I gave them a fixed price for managing that. And they said, well, I heard that in this industry, it's usually commission based. Yeah, but not a commission of $500 to spend, that would be nothing for them, putting in a lot of work and getting basically nothing. So
exactly.
you need, yeah.
If you can value how much money they make, then value how much money you want to make on top of it, and just work it out that way. That was the best way for me to be able to technically increase my hourly wage without showing them how much they're actually paying per hour.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, we're at the end of our session today. Thank you all so much for joining us. There were a lot of questions here. We couldn't go through all of them. If you want to learn more about the specific things to do with setting up your profile or with bidding strategies and things like that, you can look on upwork.com/community/events and check back on our recorded webinars from before. We tackled all of those subjects in detail last month. If you guys have anything you want to end with, let me know. If not, I think we're gonna wrap it up now.
Yeah, I'm good.
All good.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you all, and everybody, thanks for attending. And I look forward to seeing you all again in our next webinars.
Great.
Thanks for organizing.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.